Hi everyone, welcome back to the third take. My name is Lubaba,
I'm Taha.
and today we have a little different of a setting. Taha and I are just such popular girlies that we can't always record 24/7 just yet. Today we're recording online, and we want to talk about a few really quick stories that we're seeing in the media from the last week today, so that we can capture some joyful stories that are really important to a lot of our campaigns, a lot of our different political movements, and specifically talking about some campaigns that have seen some major wins over, well, major wins, period, that are really significant to our overall movements, but also we, as organizers, we want to be in the practice. And I say we as in not just me and Taha, but like we as a collective. It's in our interest to be in the practice of counting our wins, counting our blessings, naming them, knowing what they are and how we won them, because we go through a lot of tireless work, we go through a lot of thankless work, and we do a lot of things that aren't necessarily going to be, we're not getting instant gratification from a lot of the political activism that we do in our world, right? And so when we do have these wins, it's really important to name them so that we aren't just stuck in a cycle of doom and gloom, or when will this, really be fruitful, or when will we see that light at the end of the tunnel? Like we found cracks of light. Let's name them. Let's name those flashes.
I love that. And I also think it's so funny that you were like, we're so popular, we can't be recording 24/7. And here we are using the online world to record 24/7. But yeah, so I am very excited to for you to like jump into it and share the first win.
Okay, awesome. So something that I've really been paying attention to and really been excited about this week is the fact that we've won a historic divestment by Scotiabank from Elbit Systems. If folks don't know, Elbit is the largest weapons manufacturer that sends weapons to Israel to use in Gaza. And Scotiabank was one of their largest investors. The organizers at the No Arms in the Arts Coalition have been championing a lot of different campaigns to advocate for these different institutions to divest from Elbit, amongst other different weapons manufacturers. And so Elbit's been a major target for the BDS movement as well. Elbit has been a major target in terms of how to move power through our campaigns and through our collective activism, so that we can stand up for the people in Gaza and so that we can stand up for Palestinian liberation. So, like, this has been a major pressure point. So, why are activists targeting Scotiabank? Um, the answer is that banks in Canada, especially, fund a lot of our arts programs. They do the sort of philanthropic, quote unquote, funding for a lot of arts programs and a lot of different entrepreneurial grants and other types of opportunities that a lot of young people rely on, that a lot of young people in the arts rely on, especially. And it's really important that we take this onus upon ourselves to be actively divesting from these harmful institutions as well, particularly those that invest in arms manufacturers. It's important that we divest ourselves from those financial ties as a collective so that we can also speak out against what's wrong in that way. We vote with our dollars first, and the dollars that we take also are extremely telling of, they represent our politics, right? Of course, not everyone can say no to every single opportunity, but that's why these campaigns are important, so that we have collective action targeting and putting pressure on these points so that we can have these wins. And so all that to say, Scotiabank's one of the major banks in Canada, and banks often provide these artistic scholarships, grants, they pay for things, whatever. The No Arms in the Arts Coalition, they have quite a few different campaigns that they've got going in order to address different issues that happen um, in the arts world and come up in the arts world, particularly addressing funding, and who gets to be part of this arts world based on their advocacy for Palestinian liberation. I digress. All that to say, something else that they've been really focused on, a campaign they've really been focused on, is advocating for Wanda Nana Bush to be reinstated at the Art Gallery of Ontario. And so, if folks don't know, Wanda Nanabush was an Indigenous elder at the Art Gallery of Ontario who's in solidarity with Palestine and was fired. Um, the coalition did run a campaign to support her. Unfortunately, Wanda was not reinstated, but they didn't stop there. And that's really what I want to highlight here. They run a campaign to boycott the Giller Prize as well, which is a really prestigious prize that different authors can receive. And so they've advocated for this boycott due to the ties to Scotiabank as well, and in conjunction, thus Albit Systems. But overall, something that this team has won for all of us in the movement, is that Scotiabank previously divested $500 million, and that was half of their overall investment in Albit Systems. Previously, they had divested half of that from Albit Systems because of public pressure, because of this incredible campaign, amongst other larger global pressures. And now the campaign has been so successful in building momentum and the pressure that we need to put on Scotiabank in order to have these campaign wins. They've been so successful that Scotiabank has completely divested from Albit Systems now. $1 billion out of Albit. And that is a major win that our movement has made happen. That this arms manufacturer is not getting the $1 billion from Canadians that have a bank account with Scotiabank. And frankly, if you know Canadian banks, you know we have a monopoly where we have about 5 different banks that folks are pressured to have bank accounts with. Um, so basically all that to say, the TLDR, if you missed it, is that the Norms in the Arts Coalition won us a complete divestment from Scotiabank in Albit Systems. And this is historic. And overall, now Scotiabank has completely divested from Albit Systems with no shares in the company. And that's a major win that we need to take, that we need to journal about, that we need to remember. We need to remember these moments. And we
Yeah.
need to remember all of the hard work that went into this. This is a 2 year long campaign that had such a major win. And I think that piece is also really important. I'll talk about it a little bit more, in that it's important to remember that a lot of these major campaign wins, they also don't happen, within days or weeks or months sometimes. That even though they are not happening within those days or weeks or months, it does not mean that they won't happen. It does not mean that we won't have those wins. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but that's my highlight for the week. Taha, let's talk about some of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've started off with such an incredible win because um, the activists in Toronto, the community organizers that have been working on getting Scotiabank to divest, like what a win. And, banks and any corporation is always going to make sure that they protect the interests of their shareholders. That's not just us saying it, that's literally what banks do or corporations do. That's their legal duty, their fiduciary responsibility. And the fact that there was so much
Mhm.
pressure
Yeah.
that, it got this bank, one of the biggest banks in Canada, to say, okay, you know what, fine. They didn't do it out of their conscience. It's to protect profits. But that's to say that, when people say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, or what if I boycott something? It doesn't really matter. I'm just one person. Yeah, you're one person in a sea of people. And speaking of a sea of people, I would love to share a little bit about the second win, and that is, drum roll, please. So, Britain's High Court has ruled that labeling Palestine Action a terrorist group was unlawful. So, a little bit of a recap, if I said these things and you're like, what are you saying? Is that the United Kingdom, UK, Britain, England, whatever you want to call it, the government there declared Palestine Action a terrorist organization after activists from this group broke into the Royal Air Force Base in June of 2025 and vandalized 2 planes. Also, speaking of Elbit Systems, one of the major direct actions that Palestine Action activists did was also, to protest and disrupt Elbit Systems work in the UK. So now Vandalizing two planes caused a damage of around 7 million pounds, which is around 13 million Canadian dollars worth of damage. Under Canadian law, property damage is not considered terrorism unless it is likely to cause death or bodily harm. Whereas in the UK, things are a bit different. The definition of terrorism actually does include property damage with the intention to influence a government or an international government agency or to intimidate the public. Obviously, Palestine Action was not intimidating the public. And this is not just me saying it, just so everybody in the UK government can relax when it comes to me. But it's like a lot of well read journalists and scholars that study terrorism and anti-terror laws and the war on terror. They said that these activists, some of them are like 20 years old, 21-year-old. You're labeling them as terrorists. You're designating their group as a terrorist organization alongside the likes of Al Qaeda for what? All to make sure that, criticism of Israel, and when activists are going in there and saying we need to stop supplying weapons or financially supporting or letting Israeli arms manufacturers operate out of the UK or stop supporting them, or we should not be giving military aid to Israel, for all of that, you're going to take an organization that is activist organization, it's about direct action, and label it a terrorist group. Like, it makes no sense from any sort of legal basis. And clearly, because the UK's high court was like, what are you doing, UK government? This is not, this is not what should be happening. Interesting point is that the British government had changed some of the judges on the high court for this case because they wanted to have judges that were more sympathetic to the government's position. And these judges still ruled against the government. So it's kind of ironic in the best way possible. So basically, the prescription of Palestine Action as a terrorist group back in the day was the UK government saying, oh, my feelings are hurt. How dare you hurt mine, Israel's feelings? Like, no, that's not a legal argument. And clearly, the court sides with rationality in this case. So since the British government originally had prescribed Palestine Action as a terrorist organization, British police had arrested around 2,700 people just for holding signs that said, I support Palestine Action. Some of these people were the elderly. They were elders in the Jewish community that were out there as supporters of the Palestinian liberation cause, and they were arrested, dragged by the police. Furthermore, around 700 of those arrested were charged under the Terrorism Act, but nobody has yet been convicted. I wonder why. So it's clear that many people face charges, but we don't know the exact numbers of how many have been released without a charge also, because of the way the government in the UK has been so hush hush about it. But in the light of this decision, after I think Lubaba, like 18 months or something, or however long, like over a year of the British government trying to like drag its heels or like dig in its heels and be like, no, like this is a terrorist group. The court was like, no, they're not. And London's Metropolitan Police now says that in light of the judgment by the High Court, officers would not arrest people expressing support for Palestine Action, but they would continue to gather evidence of offenses to provide opportunities for enforcement at a later date. Sounds a lot like surveillance state to me, but who am I to criticize the freedom of the Western world order?
Can I just interject? They really said provide opportunities. That's like such a goofy
Just say you're
way. Like,
surveilling people. We
yeah,
already know you are. Like,
exactly. But you chose goofy wording for that
yeah,
specific. Ugh,
no,
the
it's
audacity.
yeah, I mean, honestly, that's where we are. And in addition to that, the Human Rights Watch, which is an international NGO, said that this law or this prescription of Palestine Action as a terrorist group stripped people's fundamental right to speak, assemble, and be heard in the United Kingdom, right? So this win is a huge thing. And Yasmin Ahmed, who is the UK director for Human Rights Watch, said that, the courtroom, the mood was so joyous when the High Court said that the prescription of Palestine Action as a terrorist group is unlawful. However, Yasmin Ahmed also pointed us to the fact that the battle isn't over because even though the High Court has said Palestine Action is not a terrorist organization, the UK government still has a ban on Palestine Action, which remains intact. And the co-founder of Palestine Action, Huda Amori, apologize for butchering people's names. Huda Amori rightfully pointed out, this is a monumental victory, both for fundamental rights of people in the UK, of British citizens and other people in the UK, and also a significant and big victory for the freedom of Palestinian people and for this cause. So now that we have, these wonderful, amazing brown women, POC women, like out there being the director of Human Rights Watch, co-founder of Palestine Action, like speaking up for freedoms and liberty and protecting the most vulnerable. We also have brown people who are, I don't know, man, like sellouts. I don't know what else to call her. I'm really scared that she's not going to let me back into the UK, but like the UK Home Secretary, who is Shabana Mahmood, basically said that she intends to fight this court ruling. Homegirl is British Pakistani. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you not embarrassed, as the famous meme says?
This is embarrassing.
No, very embarrassing. Like, what are you doing? And go figure, Shabana Mahmood has previously expressed sympathies with J.K. Rowling. It's almost like there's a turf to take away your freedom's pipeline. But anyway, I do not want to get sued. I am just repeating what I have read online. Allegedly, she has supported J.K. Rowling.
Comment if you want us to do an episode on the Venn diagram between TERFs and colonizers.
Exactly. And TERFs, if anybody doesn't know, is TERF, Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. So coming back to this, Amori, the co-founder of Palestine Action, commended the High Court for striking down and said that the decision will always be remembered as one of the most extreme attacks on free speech in recent British history. And she's referring to the decision by the government originally to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist group. And then I just want to say, like, before I end this section, it's really, really, really concerning when governments in so-called free societies, quotations around free, start taking steps like this, because this is the kind of stuff that dictatorships do. Because if you are in living under a dictatorship, one of the first things the military or the government, which is the military under a dictatorship usually does, is to basically take all of the people that are opposing them and label all their organizations as terrorists. And that basically strips you of your fundamental rights, and you can easily just be put away into a jail. So the next hearing for this decision was February 20th, and let's stay tuned. Let's see, because, freedom is important. Attacks on freedom anywhere can affect all of us. But good news that, at least the High Court took a stand and said, this is wrong. And all props to the activists, to the organizers, and to the defense lawyers. And to such brave kids, young people, elders, everybody that was on hunger strikes for this in jail in the UK. Like, it was kind of becoming diabolical to look at it and be like, this is the United Kingdom, the place that everybody's like, oh, I remember like in Downton Abbey when one of the people was like, British justice, envy of the world. Like, obviously, we were under no illusion of it as people from formerly colonized countries. But, it's kind of a good wake-up call for people in our Western societies here to also see that nothing is guaranteed and you have to keep on fighting for your rights.
Yeah.
And speaking of that and of bravery and brave people, the Berlinale, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the Berlin International Film Festival in Berlin, Germany.
Wow, that's crazy. I thought it was in Berlin, France.
Well, you would never know. I'm sure there's a Berlin somewhere in New Hampshire. I have no idea. But but Berlinale is a very, very famous film festival internationally, very high profile. And what they did this year, as Germany loves to do by taking a wrong stance throughout historic moments, is to say the chair of Berlinale was like, Wim Wenders or Winders was like, oh, we shouldn't be political. We shouldn't be taking political stances. Like, we should be apolitical about this kind of stuff. So when the reporter or journalist like asked the jury members, right, including Wim Wenders, whatever, what are their views on the German government's support of the genocide in Gaza, they basically, were like, yeah, no, we have to stay out of politics. Rightfully so. Powerhouses like Arundhati Roy pulled out of Berlinale because they have a conscience. And also, many people like Arundhati Roy and others, when they pulled out, some of them pointed out the fact that just a few years ago, Volodymyr Zelensky was a keynote speaker at Berlinale, or like started off the festival through an address. Not to delve into another debate about Ukraine and Russia, but what the weird thing is, like, why are you are basically selectively choosing who deserves human rights or not, right? Basically, if you're white or not. Um, so throughout all of this, Berlinale has been getting dragged through its entire festival through the mud by many brave people that are winning awards, that are going up on speech and defying, this weird silence Germany has put on phrases like "from the river to the sea" and "free Palestine" or "wearing a kufiya," and they're like going out there and breaking that silence and standing up for the right side in history and saying that we will not be silenced. And one of the most beautiful speeches was by a person who said, and I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting their name. I'm actually going to try to look them up and add them in the comments when we upload this, because they said that, one day we will have an international film festival in the middle of Gaza and we will be political. And you have these brave people saying this. And on the other hand, you have Neil Patrick Harris saying, I like to pick like apolitical art. And you have like all like Channing Tatum and like other people just like completely devoid of any like sense of conscious people going up there and being completely cowards, right? So I think the reason why we added this in a flash of joy is because it shows that even when like the first two are like big wins, and this one is like a win in a way where the conversation about Palestine is still there, guys. And when we do boycott, when we do take a stance, when we do call out things, it does matter whether it's getting film festival that is too coward, getting dragged through the mud, or the people there calling it out.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, I think it's so important that you really bring up the contrast in different artists also, Taha, and how they're reacting and speaking up, or how they are speaking up about Gaza, right? The fact of the matter is that none of this work is easy. A lot of this is putting yourself into the shoes of people that are being actively dehumanized and saying, what is it that we can do to lift them up, right? Um, and to say that I choose apolitical art is, like you said, so devoid of this human essence. Don't you look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is the difference between you and a robot? Particularly when you're creating art, beyond the desire to, yeah,
I just want to say I Googled it and it says Neil Patrick Harris served as the international ambassador for the 2019 Tel Aviv Pride Parade,
no,
attending
no.
the
He was,
event with his husband, David Burtka. I mean, how disappointing and
yeah,
just how completely cowardly.
yeah, absolutely.
Because, yeah, anyway, we can go on and on about this, like
Yeah, I'm just like,
pinkwashing of
where's your human
genocide.
essence? Is that not like the most vital, important thing to you, particularly in this day and age where AI is taking up so much of our lives? Don't you, how do you, how do you go on in life as an actor in capitalism
Mhm.
and try to feel human, period, if you cannot embrace these like actual human reactions in a time of crisis, in a time where someone else is being dehumanized, and your help, your word could do so much for them. I digress. I think that's why we persist so fiercely, right, Daha? The examples that we brought up today, we talk about them because it shows us that organizing works, that protests work, that hunger strikes work, that's labor strikes, picket lines, they work. You know, and some campaigns can take a long time, but the pressure that we put on our elected officials, on institutions, on any body that has power, the pressure that we put on, the mass pressure that we put on is what is going to shape our living conditions. It's what's going to shape the actual results and the actions that they take, right? Some campaigns can take a long time. The
Absolutely.
Norms in the Art Coalition has been running this campaign to get Scotiabank to divest from Elbit for over 2 years now. And, that work looks very different on day one than it does on day 700, for example. That means that some days look like coordinating direct action and a lot of logistical management, a lot of talking to different people about planning. Other periods are going to include endless letter campaigns, lots of mass emails and calls, lots of writing templates and doing research. And they're not going to be pretty. Some days are going to be more rejuvenating than others. Some days are going to be more reinvigorating for your politics than others. Some days are going to feel like you're more in community than others. Some days you're going to feel like your community isn't with you, right? And and still we persist. And we persist because we will eventually win. That's the thing. When we fight, we will win. It's not if, it's about when.
Exactly. That funny meme online that's like the horrors persist, but so do I. Whoever came up with that, great job.
Yes, that indeed. The horrors of late stage capitalism are engulfing our lives, and yet we persist. Why? Because there is better waiting for us, right? And there's better love out there waiting for us. There is better care we can offer to each other in community. There are better wins that are waiting for us that we may or may not have a part of. And there are endless ways, there are endless revolutionary tactics that exist in our future that we will be ready to pursue and go after at some point. And we need to set ourselves up for that now. We need to do the ground game. That ground game takes a long time, right? But it works. And that's why it's important to count these wins also and appreciate the blessings that we received because we've earned them. We fought hard and we won. And if we continue to fight together, like I said, we will win again and again and again. And so, all that to say, organizing works, community power works. Knock on your neighbor's door, ask them if they want to organize a tenants association with you to fight against a bad landlord, or maybe start taking up more space as a queer or trans person. Find ways to protect each other, build yourself up, like go to the gym, get D's,
Okay, love it.
all of these things. But my point here is that all of these things are community organizing.
Yeah, I mean,
And
like all of our oppression is interlinked, and all
yeah,
of our liberation is eventually interlinked as well. And I do want to
okay.
quickly say, because I don't want to just brush over this or forget it, the name of the Palestinian Syrian film director who won an award at Berlinale and for Best First Feature Award for Chronicles from the Siege. Their name is Abdullah Al Khatib or Al
Okay,
Khatib.
Abdullah.
So just
What an
wanted to give
icon.
them their flowers and a shout out.
Yes.
But I think you've beautifully summarized it.
I'm so glad. And I love getting to do episodes like this. And they're only possible because of all of the amazing community organizers that exist in our world. So all that to say, if you liked this episode, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify. Make sure you rate us on Spotify as well. Give us those 5 stars. You know you want to.
Yeah, and I would just say, this work is really not easy. This is not like woe is us, but like it's pretty difficult. We might only have a few subscribers or likes or whatever, but we have many haters that try to make our life difficult. So if you
It's true.
care about, us or just
Mhm.
like freedom and access to information, please, even just sending the episode to a friend, liking it,
Yeah.
sharing it, commenting it really helps us. But this has been the third take. My name is Taha.
And my name's Lubaba, and we hope to be your next favorite independent journalist.
Okay, bye everyone.